What's up, guys? This is Ro Rizvi. I'm here with Carl Martin. We're here to talk about everything related to crypto, Bitcoin, being a digital nomad, and an entrepreneur. So super excited to have Carl here. We're gonna have an amazing show. There's a lot to get to. Carl has some amazing insights for us. I'm really excited to hear and learn more about his journey as an entrepreneur and as an investor. So with that being said, Carl, I'd love for you to just give us a little bit of an intro. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, and what you do.
Yeah, thank you for having me on the podcast. So the thing is, I make one video every day on YouTube about Bitcoin, and I started out a few years ago, 3-4 years ago, where I went into crypto. I found Bitcoin, and to me, I found a passion for it immediately. I saw the value immediately. I became very nerdy. I researched every day, many hours, and that's how you become good at anything. You need to be driven by motivation and passion, and that's exactly what I had.
Nice.
And so yeah, I make one video every day about Bitcoin currently, and I educate people about the financial system, about the monetary system, about the banking system, and everything that is important for a Bitcoin holder or trader to understand. So it's not only Bitcoin, it's actually a broad spectrum of topics, but Bitcoin is the main core idea of the channel.
Cool. No, I've seen some of your videos, and what I really enjoy is how you break it down very simply. So it's very easy for everyone to understand what's going on, because a lot of people that are new to the crypto space, there can be a lot of terms, there can be a lot of, there's charts involved and stuff. And when you speak in your videos, it's very entertaining and keeps you glued. So if you guys haven't already, make sure you check out Karls' channel. It's called The Moon, right?
Exactly.
So make sure you check out The Moon. No, that's amazing. And tell us a little bit about your journey in terms of were you always entrepreneurial, or what got you into crypto or becoming an entrepreneur as a YouTuber?
Yeah, so a few years ago, I was not an entrepreneur. I was driven by this idea of a dream life. I really wanted to have a dream life. I wanted to travel the world, and I wanted to escape my normal life. And I tried a few things, and eventually I found crypto, and that was basically the game changer. But now, since the past 3-4 years, I've been a entrepreneur, and it changed my life completely, and I can now travel the world, and I can do whatever I want, and it feels it's nice to have this freedom to be able to do what you feel like. And I think it's very important for people to create their own business, make money from online. Is a very, very good way to make money.
For sure.
And preferably as passive as possible, to build up these income streams where you don't have to work every day, and you don't have to work every minute to make the money. You actually can make money while doing fun stuff, while sleeping or whatever. You make money all the time, and that is something that I was driven by. I really had that as a goal, and that's what I've been able to build up.
Amazing. And it really is about being able to have fun, right? I mean, people, we have this societal idea that we got to work for 40 years and then retire. But I think a lot of people are waking up, and especially with the advent of crypto, it's allowing people to really just live life now and not have to work away for 40 years. So I think, those two things, freedom, I think is the ultimate goal of everybody, or at least should be. So it's really cool that you were able to see that at such a young age and pursue that, and you mentioned you tried a few other things before you discovered crypto. Would you want to go into a little bit of that?
Yeah, the short story would be that I tried some online businesses. I tried some drop shipping, and I also tried, or I was about to pull the trigger for some Amazon product. I never really committed though, because I never felt driven by passion. I always had this, actually, when I did these sites, the money was the focus, and when you're driven by money, you can be successful, but it's much harder, and I felt that a lot. I mean, it wasn't really my calling to do these things. I tried, and it's always good to try. You should always try, because one thing leads to the other.
True.
So I would never discourage anyone to start something for the money, because just get started with anything. That's the key.
Yeah.
But eventually, you will probably or hopefully find this thing that you enjoy doing and that you're driven by. So finding your passion basically, and that's when the real success will start, and that's what happened for me. So. Yeah, so my previous businesses, they were more or less, some of them failed and some of them were doing okay, and even if I made some money from them, it wasn't fun, so I wasn't really enjoying it. I really needed something else. So yeah, to make a multi-million-dollar business, I think you really need to enjoy what you're doing. You need to have a passion for it. You need to be good at it, and that's what I have now.
Nice. That's true. It's really hard to wake up and work on something every single day if you're not passionate about it, because you're going to be putting in the hours as an entrepreneur. You don't get to clock out at 5 p.m. like people with a job might be able to do. I mean, this is day in, day out, and so it's very helpful if you actually enjoy it, right? So that's really cool, man. I really, and I can kind of relate, because drop shipping was one of my first businesses as well, as when I started as an entrepreneur, and it was one of the first things I tried, and it was kind of like you, like it wasn't really my passion, but it did lead me to other things like digital marketing, and then I found my passion in that. So absolutely true what you say in regards to that. Was there ever a moment, do you remember there being a specific moment where you realized the importance of Bitcoin, and we were like, oh crap, this is going to change the world? Like, what was that moment for you?
So actually, that moment was basically the first moment I learned about Bitcoin, because I come from the background that I have a lot of knowledge about the monetary system, because I've actually been driven by a interest and a motivation to learn more about the banking system, the monetary system, and the fact that it's a very corrupt and very, very flawed system. So this is something that I knew before I learned about Bitcoin. I was basically into gold. I loved gold. That was my answer to the world's problems, and I was buying physical gold. So coming from that background, Bitcoin makes sense immediately, because it's basically the same backstory. It's the same. You're fighting the same enemy, which is the banking system.
Right.
But the thing that is interesting is that Bitcoin is very different, of course, than gold. And what I realized immediately was that Bitcoin is like gold, but it is also digital, which is a game changer, of course, because today we live in a digital world. We have digital payments. So even if gold is a much better form of money than the US dollar, today we need an alternative that has the properties of gold, but also is digital. And that's Bitcoin. And I just realized that the first moment I researched Bitcoin, and that's like just the light bulb came on, and I was like, wow, this is a game changer. And I just started to research like crazy. And I have that tendency also, like when I get interested in something, I just get really nerdy.
Nice. That helps.
So yeah, that was it became my life since that point on. And everyone who researches Bitcoin, they always say that it's like taking the red pill from the Matrix. I think that's the red pill. Basically, you cannot unlearn Bitcoin. When you learn it, it's like now you're done. Like now it's your life.
It's kind of like an awakening, right? We're kind of on a spiritual island here in Copenhagen, and a lot of people have spiritual awakenings. I think when you come across Bitcoin, it's kind of a financial awakening when you realize, okay, like this can actually fix a lot of the problems, a lot of the corruption, a lot of the lack of transparency that exists in the monetary system. And it's really cool that you were able to spot that early on, and knowing about all the issues in the banking system, because a lot of people don't even realize how much is wrong with the system. So if you already knew that, and then it was kind of like coming across the perfect solution for you. Say you didn't know about all the stuff that was wrong, maybe it wouldn't have been as much of a light bulb turning on, like, oh, this is actually a necessary
exactly.
solution.
The thing is that many people that don't understand or don't have this knowledge, they look at Bitcoin and they see just another form of money. They already know the dollar, they know other fiat currencies, and honestly, like when you look at the US dollar on a daily basis, it's actually a good form of currency, because it basically doesn't lose value so quickly. Today, a dollar is basically the same value as a dollar tomorrow. So on a daily basis, people don't see a big problem with the US dollar, because it works.
Mhm.
It works. It has the network effect. Everyone accepts the US dollar.
Mm.
So it's only when you take a step back and when you go deeper into the monetary system where you find the flaws of the system and where you see that the problems that are there today
Yeah.
could become massive problems in the future. So, for example, inflation is something that is hard to notice on a daily basis, but on the
Right.
weekly basis, monthly basis, yearly basis,
Mhm.
you can see that the dollar is losing a lot of value.
Right.
Ever since 1913, the US dollar has lost 97% of its value.
Wow.
So that means that if you had $100 back then, it's basically worth a couple of dollars now,
Yeah. That's
even though it's the same $100 bill.
Same $100.
It's the value is it's devalued through inflation,
right.
and that is why you need a money that is not inflatable.
Mhm.
Gold is of course a money that is not inflatable, but then again, the digital property of Bitcoin is very
Right.
very attractive, of course.
Being able to transport, easy access, not being confiscatable, those things really matter. Absolutely, no, I totally agree with you on that. It's something that's kind of changing the world view on things. I think people are slowly waking up to this, and this happens so slowly. The demise of the power of the dollar, it happens so slowly that I think people just don't realize, right? And the other thing is that salaries have not even stayed up in terms of the percentage of increase in salary. It's when you look at it in the last 50 or 100 years, it hasn't really kept up, and the buying power of the dollar has gone down. So really, the middle class and the lower class is getting absolutely crushed. And do you see this? And so, do you see this as a way out for a lot of people?
I see Bitcoin as a hedge against inflation. I wouldn't. Yeah, it is a way out. It's the best way to hedge against inflation, and I always recommend diversifying. I wouldn't say bet everything on Bitcoin because most people they don't understand Bitcoin well enough to do such a move. Personally, I am basically 100% in Bitcoin, but
Yeah.
I've done all the research that I need for me to be emotionally detached from my investments. I don't care if it goes up or down in the short term, but most people without the knowledge about Bitcoin, they will panic sell, panic buy, and eventually they will just lose.
Right.
So, but it is a very very good alternative to the current monetary system we have, and I think the interesting part or the most important part to know about the monetary system is that money, as we call it today, which is actually just currency, it's not. So money has to hold value over time
Right.
to be money, and the gold is holding value over time, so it is money. But look at the US dollar. Like I said, it lost 97% of its value. It's not a good store of value, so it's not money. But so we call it money, and it is created by the central bank in the first place, out of thin air. They just print it out of nothing, either physically or digitally, and then this money ends up in the private banks, and there becomes like the more evil part. This is where private banks can take $100 bill and they can loan this out to 10 other people, even more. Some countries 30 people, even 40 people. So we have 40 people who think that they have a claim on this bill, but obviously if everyone comes and claims this bill, then only one of them can get it.
Right.
So it's a fractional reserve banking system, as it's called. You only have a fraction in reserve to back up what is lent out in credit.
Right.
So it's a pyramid scheme, basically. It's a Ponzi scheme. It has to collapse eventually because you cannot just keep extending credit like this without getting the debt problem, right? It's a credit expansion, and the banks have created this culture, this normalization of taking credit. So people now, they use credit to buy TVs, they use credit to buy cars, they use credit to go into the stock market, to buy homes, and actually, like credit, you can use it in a good way and in a bad way. If you use it to invest and you make more money than you pay in interest, then that's a good form of debt. It's a nice way to use leverage to make money for real estate investing or whatever.
Right.
But people don't understand this. What they do is they They use credit to buy a home to live in, for example, which
Yeah.
is actually quite stupid, because what you're doing is you're just draining your wallet out of money,
Mm-hmm.
because you have to pay interest and you're not making a dime off of it. You're just paying the bank every month. But if you're renting it out and you make more than the interest, then that's another scenario.
True.
But we have normalized this consumer behavior on debts
Absolutely.
instead of investing, and this is something that is the big problem in the world, and most people don't really realize it. But when they do realize this, that's when most people realize, okay, maybe Bitcoin is a good idea, because you cannot print Bitcoin out of nothing.
Right. Right.
It's a limit. You cannot print it. No central bank, no private bank, no government can ever control the supply. It's completely decentralized.
Absolutely. Unlike we've seen a lot of countries that have frozen people's accounts whenever there's been like an economic collapse. We saw it in places like Greece and I believe even Cyprus. So that's something that the governments have done before, and it's possible that it will happen again when things collapse, right? So it's interesting to see that this system can protect against that, and I think it will be a while until people realize, like, hey, this is built on a house of cards. Like, the money that's being given out by the Fed is not actually real, it's just being printed. And then you mentioned loans, right? Credit. And I think without that, the economy would collapse. Like, it's literally the only way the economy keeps going is if people continue to take loans, and those loans get paid back with interest and then lent out again, right? So there's nothing actually there. As you mentioned, fractional reserves, there's no actual like liquidity there. So it's a really, really crazy system, and most people have no idea about this. So I'm wondering if you think there's actually going to be a point where people will realize this, or I don't know, the mainstream media and stuff like kind of hide it. You don't really get it. We also don't learn about finances in school a lot, and I think there's a reason they don't teach us finance in school. It's because they want people trapped in the lending system and to continue to just be part of the rat race, right? So as tough as it is to hear, that's kind of what our system has been developed to do, this entire schooling system and education system. So where do you see things going in terms of let's say, do you think where do you think Bitcoin's going to go, and do you think at some point there will be a crash and there will be a correction?
So I think that in terms of the monetary system, I think that it will take a big crisis for people to wake up. People are not going to wake up just because they research Bitcoin.
True.
They need to have a first-hand experience of a crisis, most of them at least.
Yeah.
And this is what we're seeing in many countries right now. Lebanon, for example, currently, the Lebanese lira fell 50% just in the past 10 days,
Wow.
and 80% ever since last October. There you go, that's a huge collapse of the currency, and people are rushing to Bitcoin over there right now.
Wow.
We're seeing this in many countries. We're seeing Argentina having problems, we're seeing Turkey having inflation, and yeah, you can go on and on. Venezuela is the prime example, of course, having massive hyperinflation, and this is where I think that all currencies are going eventually, including the US dollar. So I think that first we will see these smaller currencies collapse, and then eventually we'll see the dollar also collapse. But of course, first the smaller currencies will be sold into the US dollar predominantly, also getting sold into gold and into Bitcoin, but predominantly into the US dollar, because it still has that confidence, it still has that world reserve currency status.
Right.
Everyone accepts it globally, but I think that eventually people will wake up to this. Like, if the Lebanese lira can fall, and if the Argentine, like if all of these currencies are falling, there's nothing differentiating these currencies from the dollar. It's just another piece of paper with other numbers on it. It's just, but it's fundamentally the same thing. It's just paper.
Yep.
And this is where I think the world is heading. Eventually, the US dollar will collapse, and when this monetary system collapses, we need an alternative, right? And like I said earlier, gold is a alternative, and then Bitcoin is also an alternative. I tend to think that Bitcoin will probably be the most viable solution, and if that happens, or when that happens, we will see a huge demand for Bitcoin. It will be like we've never seen before. we will see a mainstream hype like never before, and this is an event that could potentially bring Bitcoin to millions of dollars per Bitcoin in today's purchasing power. Of course, with inflation, you could see a Bitcoin at $250 billion, quadrillions of quintillions of dollars, because if the dollar devalues, then essentially the dollar is not a good measurement of value.
True.
Because if the value is worthless, then
it's like sky high,
But so at that point you have to measure value against other things rather than currencies. Just like in Lebanon right now, if you're measuring value against the lira, then that doesn't work, because it's always changing.
It's like 80% drop.
Yeah, it's like taking, if you have a watch that is always moving and always like floating around, it's impossible to tell the time.
Right.
And if you're trying to measure something with something that is floating like this all the time, not possible. So that's why fiat currencies like the dollar are not a good measurement of value, because they are inflatable. Actually, Bitcoin might be the best way to measure value, because it's absolutely scarce. You can never exceed 21 million.
Not gonna be more than 21 million.
Yeah, so there you go. There you have your watch, which is fixed. It will not change. It will just tell the time exactly how it is. That's a property of Bitcoin, which is very attractive.
But that will take some time to reach that level of stability, right? Because right now, Bitcoin is pretty volatile, and we just went through a halving. So there is quite a bit of volatility, and it's hard to, let's say something costs 3 Bitcoin today, it might be very different in 3 years, right? So is that a valid point?
Bitcoin is very volatile, and the volatility is going down year over year as the liquidity goes up, and eventually the volatility will be much lower than today, just as the volatility is much lower today than 5 years ago, and even just a few years ago. So the liquidity has to go up, and the liquidity goes up as more people use Bitcoin, as more people store their value in Bitcoin, and of course, some people say that Bitcoin cannot work as money because it's volatile, but Bitcoin is small right now. If you compare with gold, which is almost 100 times bigger, it has much lower volatility. And I believe that Bitcoin, when Bitcoin has the same market cap of gold, it will have similar volatility as gold. Saying that Bitcoin cannot work because it's volatile is like saying that something that is small cannot be big.
Right.
But everything that is big was once small, right? So of course you have to go through these stages of high volatility to get to the point where Bitcoin is finding this supply and demand equilibrium.
Interesting. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I think it's still early days. As it gets more exposure, as people start using Bitcoin, and it becomes more of even more of a global thing, we'll see some level of stability for sure. And that'll be exciting, because it'll actually be like people using Bitcoin, and right now we're seeing a little bit of that, places starting to accept Bitcoin and other coins, so it'll be interesting to see when it becomes mainstream. So I'm excited for that. Tell us a little bit about your we talked a little bit about what you think Bitcoin will do. Do you think it makes sense for somebody in terms of an investor to trade or to just buy and hold?
So that depends. Like for most people, just buying and holding is the easiest and most secure and profitable way of making money in Bitcoin. Over time, Bitcoin is going up fantastically. It's been going up millions of %, and it will continue to go up. So that's the investing strategy. If you're a trader, then you have to learn trading first, and that's a very big task. Trading is not something that you can just start off with and start being profitable in the next few weeks. It will take months, maybe even years, before you come up with a strategy that is truly over time profitable. So it's hard work. Some people make it seem like it's something easy, but it's not easy at all. And you have to go through the ups and downs, and you have to lose your whole account to learn. That's all the big traders, they lost their whole accounts several times. That's how you learn. It's basically the tuition of trading. When you go to college, you pay a big fee. When you trade, you lose your accounts.
You lose your accounts, yeah.
It's how it is. I've done it, and everyone has done it. The big difference between a good trader and a bad trader is that the good trader takes this loss as a lesson and learns from it. Otherwise, it's just in vain. But if you learn from it, then it's actually just a lesson,
A lesson. Yep.
which you paid for.
That's true.
But for most people, buying and holding by far will be the easiest and best way to buy bit or to make money from Bitcoin.
From Bitcoin, right? It's just you kind of let it be automated. It's another way you could do it, and just so you don't even have to think about it and you don't touch it.
Yeah. So the thing is, like, if you believe that the demand of Bitcoin will go up, which I completely believe, then the price will go up because the supply is fixed. So you have supply and demand. So if the supply is fixed and the demand will always increase, then inevitably the price has to go up to meet the demand. And this is the reason why Bitcoin is going up so rapidly, like we've never seen anything before. Bitcoin is the best performing asset in human history. It was the best performing asset of the previous decade, and it will be the best performing asset of this decade also. That's my opinion. I really believe that.
100%. Yeah, I can definitely see that's true. As we get closer and closer to the last Bitcoin mined, the price just keeps going up at an insane rate. Even Wall Street guys are regretting not being in Bitcoin, right? So from the beginning of this year, because we were at 3,000 or something, and now we're hovering around 10,000. So what about a little bit more of a near-term prediction? Where do you see Bitcoin going? We just went past the halving, and things have been kind of steady. Where do you see Bitcoin going in the next 1 to 3 months?
So yeah, the halving came and went, and nothing spectacular happened. And I think many people anticipated a big breakout, a big pump to the upside. And of course that didn't happen, and actually it was very expected, because that's exactly how the halving was supposed to work. It shouldn't affect anything. It should just be an event where the inflation gets cut in half. That's the only thing. So the fact that nothing happened is exactly what was intended by Satoshi Nakamoto when he created this whole phenomenon. And of course people got very bored now, because nothing happened. People want Bitcoin to be at 20,000 now.
Right.
So yeah, we see a boring period of time now. Low volatility, and usually that is the time when you want to pay attention, because when people are bored and the volume goes down, that is usually when a big break is about to happen. And this is what I believe is going to happen, a big decisive move. And if it's going to be up or down, it's very hard to tell right now. We need to see Bitcoin break either resistance or support. Essentially, if Bitcoin breaks above 10.5k, then that's the bullish sign. That means Bitcoin will most likely go up in the next few months, and might even go as high as 14,000, 20,000 in the next few months, leading into 2021. If Bitcoin breaks down below the $8,000 level, then there we have the bearish scenario. That's a bad sign. That means we're breaking key market structure, and this could indicate that Bitcoin is going lower. And in that case, I would look as low as $6,200. But I don't think Bitcoin is going lower than that in any scenario.
And right now, do you think it's more of a likelihood that we're going to break resistance and go past 10.5, or do you think we're going closer to 6-7k?
So Bitcoin is currently in a short-term uptrend, indicating that Bitcoin is trying to break through the 10.5k level. But Bitcoin has tested this level 3 times and got rejected all these 3 times. Getting rejected a 4th time would just actually be keeping up with the consistency of what's happening before. So a rejection would actually make sense. But usually a trader would never guess. What you do is you wait for Bitcoin to take action, and that's when you react. We don't predict Bitcoin, we just react.
Right.
That's a better way of trading and investing.
Makes sense. You look at the chart, see what they're doing. If it's breaking resistance, then you know you're bullish. If it's going down, breaking below, then you know it's a short move. So that's pretty cool, man. It's good to see that we're finally reaching a point where we might see like a big move, because I think a lot of people have been waiting for Bitcoin to do something interesting, and so we might be getting there really soon. Karl, it'd be really cool to hear a little bit more about your story in terms of what got you traveling. I know you were going to like tons of conferences, and how do you view travel as a part of your life as a digital nomad?
So yeah, traveling is amazing, and this is something that I was visualizing when I was younger, or even just a few years ago. My dream life, just traveling around and going to conferences and seeing the world. And I think it's very, very important for people that are online entrepreneurs to go out there in the world and find other digital nomads and digital entrepreneurs, because you can share so many ideas, get so much inspiration, and you can have so many synergies. And I think that's very important. Just like we're doing right now, we're doing this thing, and this wouldn't happen if you didn't travel, if I didn't travel.
Exactly.
Like, we have to go out there and meet each other.
Absolutely.
And you will find incredible business ideas and business partners, and I think that's very, very important.
Yeah. Could you tell us a little bit about, like, what was your favorite place that you've traveled to, or what have been some of your highlights from all the travels that you've done? Because I know you've taken a lot of flights last year and stuff. What would you say has been your most memorable, and where do you want to go?
So far, Kopangan, where we are at now, this is my favorite place.
Nice.
This is where I feel like home. I love this place, and I'm fortunate enough to have this cool villa that I really enjoy.
It's pretty amazing, guys. Gotta tell you.
I love it, and I just feel like this is the place where I could have a base. So that's my plan, to have a base here, and then I will travel from here. And preferably in the future, I'll probably have like 3 bases.
Nice.
In different countries, and continue to travel. That's
awesome.
it.
Awesome. That's pretty cool. It's interesting how, like, when we're young, we like have these visions, and having that vision board, having visualizing these things actually really has helped me personally, and I'm sure it's helped you and a lot of other entrepreneurs. So I hear a lot of times that people that are not remote, that are stuck at home, and especially now in these times where travel is a little bit difficult. A lot of people say they can't travel or they don't have the funds, but I think it's really about making that decision, visualizing it, and just really going out there and putting a lifestyle together that allows you to do this. I think it's really, really important, and I think by doing these videos and interviews, I want to inspire other people to allow them to see that this is actually, there are real entrepreneurs. There's not just backpackers that are out there just to party. There is actually real entrepreneurs like Karl, like myself, that are actually living this lifestyle and living this type of dream life, a lot of people would say. So
I think it's very important to have goals and visualize these goals, see them in your mind, and see them as if they are already yours. You have to really energetically vibe with these goals, not just write them down and not think about them again. You really need to have them in your mind with intention. This is what I did, probably what you did also back in the days.
Definitely.
And I think all successful entrepreneurs have had this clear visual image of what they want, and it's all about reprogramming the subconscious. You need to reprogram your subconscious for happiness and wealth, because this is what you will attract. If you put that in your mind, you will basically just attract more of what you're already thinking about. And if you can control your thought patterns into being more happy thoughts and more wealthish thoughts and more thoughts about what you want, then you will attract more of this. And it might sound too easy to be true, but it's actually exactly how it works. And I think that it's important to have higher goals than you think. Some people have too low goals. I mean, if your goal is to make 100,000 in a few years, like, what good is that? Like, and some people might say, I want to make 3,000 per month or something. But, like, come on, you put up the goals. I mean, it's all about unlocking the mind. If you don't think that 100K a month is possible, then it is not possible.
Exactly.
You have to think that everything is possible, and that's, of course, hard in the beginning, because you will be doubtful. And I was doubtful in the beginning. My goals were too low in the beginning. But as soon as I reached my first goals, I just realized, wow, this is working. As soon as you unlock your mind, you get so much more power, and your mindset gets so much better. And when you have this healthy mindset, it gets so much easier to attract these things you want. And that's when you should 10x your goals. So if you think that your goal is 10K per month, then 10x 100K a month should be your goal. As soon as you reach that goal, next level, 5 million, 10 million per month, or whatever, anything is possible. And it's only the people that actually think that that's true that will actually reach these goals. in the end. I think Steve
Absolutely.
Jobs was the guy who said, it's only the people who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world who usually, in the end, actually does.
Actually do. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's so true. It's so true. If you don't believe that you can do it, it's not going to happen. So you have to have that belief there,
Hmm.
and you have to have a lot of positivity and maintain that high frequency. And I can tell that you've done a lot of self development and a lot of growth and stuff. So what kind of made you get started on that path? Were you always into this stuff, or like how was it just something that came to you naturally, and it was something that you absorbed naturally?
I've always been interested in knowledge. I
Mm.
love knowledge. I love to read about things. But it was only like 4 years ago when I really started to take it very seriously with this self development things
Mm-hmm.
and mindset. I guess mindset is the key.
Yeah,
Everything comes down to that. So,
that's true.
yeah.
Yeah, nice. I mean, it's very true. Like we are literally creating our reality by the thoughts that we're having, and it's as an entrepreneur, especially, there's so many factors going on. So it's very critical to maintain that positive mindset, and like Carl said, have those really high goals because you really can achieve them if you just put your mind to it. And that's just being an entrepreneur. That's very very critical. With that being said, do you have just two quick things? What's your biggest mission? I know you mentioned you wanted to educate people about the financial systems. Do you have any other big mission? And where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Yeah, so my mission right now is just to continue to spread the word about Bitcoin as much as I can. I know that Bitcoin will be a game changer for many people around the world, and I know that the banking system is corrupt and is a big mafia. I want people to understand that. So, with my YouTube channel, uploading one video every day, I'm just trying to spread the message as much as possible. And by now, I'm reaching millions of people. I mean, I think I have like 140, 200,000 unique viewers every month.
Wow.
So in the end, we're talking about millions and millions of views. So right now, I really feel like I am doing what I wanted to do, and from here I can just keep scaling up and keep educating more and more people as
Amazing.
time goes by.
Amazing. And in 5 years, do you see yourself in the space? What do you see yourself doing?
In
It's
5
a long
years,
time in crypto. 5
Yeah.
years.
um, so in 5 years, I think that Bitcoin will be above $100,000, which means that my Bitcoin that I hold now will be much more valuable. I see myself using my money to do good in the world. I really want to do a lot of charitable work, and I see the crypto space being a huge thing. I think that the same kind of hype as we saw in the .com boom, we will see with Bitcoin and crypto. So basically, everyone will talk about it. All the newspapers will talk about it, and the mainstream will start pouring in their money.
Nice.
And this is something that I'm expecting for the next 5 years, and it will be a completely different world. We will see many countries continue to fall into hyperinflation, and yeah, we will see a lot happen.
Wow, that's incredible. Regarding that hyperinflation, one real quick question I have related to our economic scenario right now, where we just got through CV and everyone things kind of opening up. Do you see the markets getting worse in the near-term future? Like we are now in July. Do you see a big crash happening in the regular markets that might affect Bitcoin?
It's possible. I think that currently we're seeing the Fed and other central banks printing currency like never before. This is supporting the markets, which is the intent of printing the currency. But of course, it's artificial and it's not creating real value. You're just pushing the problem into the future by doing this. And eventually, you cannot just escape the problem, and eventually we'll see a big reaction. Now, we could see a big deflationary crisis where we see a big stock market crash. And that could happen with another big second wave of COVID. We see more mainstream fear,
Right.
And that could potentially push Bitcoin down also. But I think that this crisis will come regardless of any second wave or whatever. The only question is, will it be a big deflationary crisis, or will it be a big hyperinflationary crisis? Because if they keep printing and keep printing, eventually you will see the same scenario as we are seeing in Venezuela and other countries, where the stock markets are going to the moon. The stock markets are completely skyrocketing.
Yeah.
But the underlying dollar, the underlying currency to measure the value, is devaluing. So actually you're just seeing
That's a really interesting perspective.
The
in
phenomena
terms of
where the
everything that's
currency
playing out
is
right
getting
now, so it'll
devalued,
be
not the
very
stock markets going up.
interesting to see what happens in the next few
Yeah.
months as we approach the end of the year. It's an election year as well, so lots of stuff going on. Lastly, Karl, can you just give us one piece of advice that you would want to give to digital nomads around the world, to our listeners listening, and where they can find you?
Yeah, so I have my YouTube channel called The Moon. That's where you can find me. And I think that just go out there, find other people that are like-minded. You do so by traveling, going to these digital nomad hubs. Do some co-working at these co-working spaces. You will find so many interesting people, find friends for life, and leave your hole. I mean, if you're in your country, and if you have if you're surrounded by normal people with normal mindsets, then I mean, they can be amazing people. But if you want people to push you, and if you want like-minded people that want to go forward in life just like you, then go out there and find them. They are everywhere. Just you just have to go to these amazing places. Like Kopangan is one great example of such a place.
Absolutely amazing advice. Thank you so much, Karl. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us, and really enjoyed our conversation. So thanks again, and it was really a pleasure talking to you. Hopefully I'm sure we're gonna have more fun times in Kopangan. And thank you to the listeners. Really appreciate you guys joining in. Make sure you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel if you guys are watching on YouTube. And if you're listening to this on the podcast, make sure you leave us a rating and subscribe to the podcast so you can be alerted as soon as the next one is out. Thanks guys for listening. Peace out from Kopangan, Thailand.